Thank you for joining us this Sunday, 10 p.m. here in Korea. I'm Daniel Che, here to provide you with the latest. We begin here in South Korea after sorting out a majority of contentious issues hampering passage of the 2015 budget. Korea's main rival parties on Sunday agreed to extend the budget review period with the hope of passing it by the legal deadline of December 2nd. Our Choi You-sun starts us off.
Less than 24 hours before hitting the legal deadline for reviewing next year's budget bill, Korea's two main rival parties agreed to give themselves until December 2nd to finalize negotiations. According to a new law, the parliament is legally bound to pass the 2015 budget by Tuesday, and after the review deadline of midnight Sunday, the government's $340 billion budget plan will be submitted for a vote. Both the ruling and opposition parties are aiming to pass the bipartisan bill on Tuesday while getting rid of the government version of the budget. If the parties manage to do this, it will be the first time in 12 years the parliament will have passed the budget by the legal deadline. On Sunday, the Budget Committee explained there just wasn't enough time for the parties to finalize the bill. The opposition party boycotted the parliament last week over the central government's cost-sharing plan for a free childcare program and a proposed cigarette price increase, as well as the party's own demand to scale back corporate tax reductions. While the two sides have set aside the major points of contention, they still need to reach agreement on the government's economic revitalization plan and welfare bills. Meanwhile, the parties are in a dispute over tax-related bills to be attached to the budget, which will also be put to a vote on Tuesday with or without bipartisan agreement. Choi You-sun, Arirang News.
North Korea's nuclear ambition shows no signs of fizzling off anytime soon. Two North Koreans are reportedly training at a Russian nuclear research facility in Dubna, raising suspicions that Moscow is secretly supporting Pyongyang's nuclear weapons development program. Japan's Sankei Shimbun quoted Nikolai Ruskovich, the chief scientific secretary at the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research, as saying the trainees are learning the science used for developing nuclear weapons technology. The report adds that 6 North Korean experts stayed at the facility back in January to learn how to turn radioactive material into nuclear material. If the report is found to be true, it would go against the 2006 UN resolution banning the training and support of North Koreans in nuclear weapons development. In some lighter news for those who are not involved in the movie industry, especially with a parody movie featuring North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Sony Pictures is investigating to find out if there are any North Korea connections to a cyber attack that took down their computers earlier this week. Investigators are looking into the possibility that the hackers are working on behalf of North Korea and operating out of China, though no link to the North has yet been discovered. The hackers, who call themselves the Guardians of Peace, reportedly threatened to release Sony's secrets if their demands are not met, without detailing the demands. The attack happened a month ahead of the studio's release of The Interview, a comedy movie about 2 American journalists hired to assassinate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. North Korea in June called the production of such a movie an act of war. The Interview is slated to open in the U.S. on Christmas Day as scheduled. Moving on to other stories, the Japanese government is reported to have demanded the removal of statues in Seoul and the U.S. state of California that were put up in remembrance of victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement program. Citing diplomatic sources, Yonhap News Agency reports that Tokyo requested the removal of a statue in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul and another one in Glendale, California. This in an apparent bid to pressure Korea to make the same effort as Japan to settle compensation and other issues affecting the victims, the majority of whom are Korean. The request was made during recent high-level talks on the issue with Korea. Officials in Seoul responded that it's not up to the government to intervene, as the statues were put up by civilians, and that Tokyo should instead settle the issue in a way that's acceptable to the victims. The Korean labor market is about to see a major shift in the coming years. Without some drastic measures to turn things around, it looks like a projected labor shortage and an increase in low-wage jobs could be inevitable. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us more.
There's going to be a labor shortage early in the next decade, with the number of available jobs surpassing the number of those seeking work. This will be the result of a sharp decline in the number of job seekers who are part of the baby boom generation as they exit the labor market. This, according to the Hyundai Research Institute in a new report. It's referring to people born right after the Korean War between 1955 and 1963. The group numbers more than 7 million people, or nearly 15% of the total population. The report also says there'll be a sharp increase in the number of low-wage, low-skilled jobs. It projects Korea will have high employment elasticity, which means more people will be offered jobs despite small increases in industrial growth. Employment elasticity measures increases in employment when the economy grows by 1%. The report says Korea's employment elasticity will shoot up to 0.6 points in this decade from 0.2 points in the late 2000s. The institute also projects there will be a jump in the number of students who work while they're in school, as well as job increases in the service sector. The report suggests the need for policies to resolve the projected labor shortage, and in particular, policies designed to help people balance work and family and work and school, in addition to increasing the number of temporary positions available to workers heading into retirement. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
In the tech realm, Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics led the global market for ultra-high-definition TVs during the July to September period by a combined 51%. The Korean tech giants were followed by Hisense in China and Sony in Japan, each with a market share of around 10%. Market tracker Display Search says the Korean TV brands are facing a growing threat from Chinese makers with cheaper products, adding that the competition for market share is going to be fierce in the fourth quarter when companies cut their prices for Black Friday discounts in the United States. Chinese President Xi Jinping has made it clear that his country must protect its sovereign territory while also improving relations with its neighbors. In a key foreign policy speech, Xi said China should uphold its territorial sovereignty and properly handle its ongoing territorial disputes. Excerpts of his speech given at the Communist Party meeting on foreign affairs held Friday and Saturday were released Sunday by Xinhua news agency. The Chinese leader went on to say that Beijing is seeking peaceful development and opposes the willful use of threat of force. The speech follows comments by U.S. President Barack Obama earlier this month, warning of the dangers of outright conflict in Asia stemming from territorial disputes. China has competing claims, that is, for islands with Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Brunei. Leaders of Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement may begin targeting government buildings. One of the student groups posted a message to their Facebook page asking supporters to meet Sunday evening at government buildings in the Admiralty District, the main protest site, and to bring protective gear including umbrellas, goggles, masks, and helmets. However, a source close to another student group said the action could be planned just to get the dwindling number of protesters off the streets. If students began blocking government buildings, it could force the police to make arrests, which could prompt protesters to leave. Just over a week ago, a small group of protesters tried to break into the legislature, the first attempt to break into a government building since pro-democracy protests began in late September. Darren Wilson, the white police officer who fatally shot unarmed black teenager Michael Brown in the U.S. city of Ferguson, Missouri, has resigned. Wilson told the St. Louis Post-Dispatch Saturday that he was stepping down of his own free will, saying the department had received threats of violence if he continued in his job. He told the paper, quote, "I'm not willing to let someone else get hurt because of me." His resignation follows a grand jury decision last week not to charge Wilson in the Brown shooting. The decision sparked demonstrations in Ferguson and other U.S. cities and reignited a national debate on police brutality and law enforcement practices. The U.S. Justice Department is conducting its own investigation into whether Wilson violated Brown's civil rights and a separate investigation into police practices. Trams, they are not a common mode of transportation here in Korea, not yet at least, but that could soon change. Local researchers are developing a mini tram that gets from A to B without the need for a driver or rails. Our Connie Kim has this story.
A mini train approaches a depot soon after a passenger presses a call button. And without a driver, the vehicle runs automatically and can accommodate up to 6 passengers. It's a domestically developed unmanned compact train called the mini tram. Instead of running on rails, the tram recognizes magnet platforms placed every 2 meters along the road, which enables it to correctly calculate its route. Another feature is its vertical mobility function, implemented for the first time ever, which allows a mini tram to be used inside large buildings as well. It can be recharged wirelessly in just 2 minutes while waiting at a tram stop. The Korea Railroad Research Institute plans to speed up development of the technology with hopes of commercializing the mini tram by 2016.
We expect the mini tram to be implemented in large facilities such as Incheon International Airport to carry passengers from the terminal to the parking lot.
Mini trams are currently in operation at London Heathrow Airport and Masar City in the United Arab Emirates. Now, many are curious to see how the locally developed mini tram might change our daily activities here in Korea in the future. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And now the weather. You can expect snow in the morning of Monday in central parts of the country, and brace yourself for a lot more snow in the west coast. Around 10 centimeters of snow, that is. Now let's take a look at the weather conditions outside of Korea around the world. And that's all from us. Thank you for watching and have a great start to your week.